Hello everyone, this is Danny Scroggins from HOPS HQ. Got a little HOPS update video for you regarding the recording of maintenance tasks on asset, but only for specific mileage ranges. So up to now you've only been able to record an asset maintenance task as having either been completed or not completed on an asset, but now you can record it over a specific mileage range. And this is largely driven by P-way assets such as track and fencing, where there's been a debate for a long time about what's the optimum length of linear asset to have. Is it better to have one track asset for the whole railway? Is it better to break it down into small sections or medium sections? And there's been pros and cons about whichever of those you've chosen. So just to give a little example, here's a railway that I've drawn with 3 stations and a run-round loop at each end and some sidings in the middle. And my recommendation has always really been to have an asset between stations or other significant locations. So highlighted in green there might be an asset between Barkhill and Castleford. It's also a good idea to have assets based on where you might want to conduct your patrols, or where you might want to mark assets in or out of use, such as if you only run Santa over half the railway and you only bother to inspect that bit in December and just mothball the other bit that you're not going to run over, because obviously it's a bit of a waste of resources to examine it, then having a boundary between assets at the point where you stop examining it makes a lot of sense. So if we imagine our asset there from Barkhill to Castleford, if the patroller walks from one end to the other, it's very easy to mark off the asset maintenance task in HOPS as having been complete. But what about if he walks halfway from Barkhill to Castleford and then gets called off onto another job? Up to now, it hasn't been possible to mark in HOPS that half that maintenance task has been completed, or it's been completed over half the asset. But now it has. Now, because it didn't used to be possible, some railways break down their assets into really, really small sections, sometimes just one chain per asset. And that did allow a very granular, very accurate recording of where the maintenance tasks had been completed and where they hadn't. But it made it extremely onerous, unrealistically onerous, to actually do the recording. If Barkhill to Castleford is 3 miles long, that's 240 chains, that would be 240 asset tasks completed, which would be very onerous to put into HOPS. Now, we did provide you about a week ago with a tool for marking off more than one asset as having had its maintenance task completed at the same time. And that now would work in these circumstances, but it's not the optimum way to use that tool. That tool is much more appropriate for if you walk around a layout and do all the FPLs at the same time, or if you do the FTRs on a rake of 6 coaches all at the same time. There's better ways now of recording track assets in HOPS. So let's go and have a look at HOPS. Here I am in the asset register. I'll select my permanent way assets. Here's my Barkhill to Castleford asset that I just referred to on the diagram. And just before we look at maintenance tasks, just to remind you, because it's a linear asset, down here is where attributes of the asset can be recorded differently over different mileage sections. So in this case, rail type. It's got 4 different types of rail type over 4 different mileages within the asset itself. If we have a look at maintenance tasks, and first of all, we have to specify which maintenance tasks are required. This is the same as it's always been in HOPS, and you only have to do this once. So there we go, there's our BVI, and our SMS says that we must do it at least once every 9 days. We try and do it once a week, but in order to give us a bit of flexibility over which day of the week we do it on, let's imagine the SMS says we must do it every 9 days. So here it is in the list. There's only one maintenance task required on this asset. I'm sure in real life there'd be many more. The BVI patrol, basic visual inspection, every 9 days, and it's due now because it's never ever been done before. So let's log that we've done the BVI. And first of all, I'm going to log quite an old one. I'm going to log one that I did back in October. And you'll notice that there's extra boxes here now for the mileage range completed, and by default they have the entire mileage of the asset in. So if you take no action, it'll have no change. If you just record it as it's given, it'll record it on the whole asset, just like it always used to do. So I'll leave this one as the whole asset and I'll press save. And it's still due now, because we've got to do it every 9 days, and that one was recorded back in October. The last conducted date is not so easy anymore because it could have been conducted at different dates at different lengths of the asset. So now when you click on view, you get a nice calendar with all the days along the top and all the mileages in the asset down the side. And where this green line is, this is when the asset maintenance task was last completed. And in this case, it was completed down the entire length of the asset. But as we'll see in a minute, if I only did from 5 miles to 6 miles, it would only go down to 6 miles. And then 9 days of light green for how long that asset maintenance task was valid for. So because we did the whole lot in one go, it all expired on the 19th and we've had nothing since. If I go back to my asset, and now I'll record one within a much closer range. I wanted to do one a little while back so that you could see that the green did expire after the required number of days. I'll record one on the 7th of November, so that's within 9 days ago from where we are now, and we'll imagine that I did it from the 5-mile post to the 7-mile post, let's say. And I can record any number of chains that I want. That's the level of granularity that you can go to. So it's still required now because only 5 miles to 7 miles has been done. There's still 7 miles to 8 miles 50 that hasn't been done, so it's still required now. But if I now look at the last conducted, we'll see that we're getting a little bit closer. So there's the one I did first. Here's the one I've done just now on the 7th of the 11th, and you can see that the green extends right up to today. But it doesn't go down the length of the whole asset because I only walked as far as the 7-mile post. So down here, this lot's all not still green. If I go back to the asset again, there is a summary version of this down here below, and there'll be a column for each maintenance task that's required on this asset. So there's only one maintenance task required at the moment, so there's only one column. And it shows the current status. So it's green all the way down to the 7-mile post, and then white after that because there is nothing after that. I'll pretend I've done another patrol, or somebody else has done another patrol, and this time we'll say that I did it a couple of days later. I did this one on the 10th, and we'll say that this one overlapped a little bit with the last one. We started at 6 miles 60, and we didn't quite get to the end of the asset. We only went to 8 miles 40. So we'll say that that one's been done. The green will now go down to, whoops. Oh, okay, we'll have a look at the calendar. There's the second BVI that I did. There's the third one. You can see it overlapped a little bit. That's the one that we just recorded, and obviously the green goes right the way up to today. Doesn't quite get to the end of the asset. You don't have to record it to exactly within 10 chain sections. That was just coincidence. I'll do one in a second, and you'll see that it can do any number of chains. If I go back to the asset again, I was going to look at this summary chart. We can see that it now goes down to 8 miles 40. The current status is everything's okay up to 8 miles 40. The last 10 chains haven't been done at all, so it's still due now. Now I'll log a task and say that I've done that last little bit. So we'll say that I did it on the 11th, the next day, from 8 miles 40 to 8 miles 50. The last bit that needed to be done, I've now recorded that it's done. So now the whole asset has gone green because the whole asset has this maintenance task completed within the required frequency, within the last 9 days. We can now get a due date, and the due date is the date on which the earliest part of the asset goes out of currency. So even though we've recorded 3 or 4 BVIs there, the 16th of the 11th will be when the first part of the asset goes out of date. If I have a look at the view again, have a look at the calendar, and we'll see if I scroll down a little bit, whoops, that there's the last little bit that I did. So they all go to today because today is within 9 days of all of those, but the oldest is this inspection here from 5 miles to 6 miles 60. So this will be what determines the expiry date, the due date at the moment, and it's due every 9 days. It was last done on the 7th, so hopefully it'll expire on the 16th. There we go, it expires on the 16th of the 11th. So let me log a maintenance task again, and I'm going to log it over that first section again. From 5 miles, we did 5 miles to 7 miles last time. This time we've gone a bit further, 5 miles to 7 miles 10, and we say that we did this one on the 12th. Save. So again, now I'll just have a quick look at the view. There's the one I just logged, and you can see it's gone down a little bit further because this time I walked a bit further. So the due date should now have been kicked on a little bit. The oldest inspection on this asset is this section here, from 7 miles 10 to 8 miles 40, and that was done on the 10th of the 11th. This BVI is no longer relevant now because we've had another BVI since. So the oldest part of the asset was inspected on the 10th of the 11th, plus 9 days is the 19th of the 11th. So it's knocked the expiry date on a little bit. And this current status is all still green because it never expired. It's just we know that the green will now last a little bit longer. Now I'm going to record a maintenance task that wasn't fit to run. One where we examined it and we found that whatever the asset was, it was not in a safe condition and we put it out of use. So I'll record that I did this on the 8th of November from 6 miles to 7 miles, and whoops, 7 miles 0, and it was not fit for trains. Fit for trains is the word that's used for this particular asset maintenance task. You get to decide the appropriate words that mean yes, this maintenance task was okay, or no, it wasn't. So I'll press save, and if I have a look at the view now, there's where I did that maintenance task and found that the track was not safe for trains. So it shows in red because it was a negative outcome, and that's completely overruled the positive outcome that I had the day before, and now the red is extending along, and the red will extend forever until it finds another green. So in this case, for 6 miles to 6 miles 60, the red lasted 4 days, and then it was examined again and it went green. But for 6 miles 60 to 7 miles 0, it only lasted 2 days, and then it was examined again and it went green. So the calendar moves along in time order from left to right. Just to show you, I'll record one for the 19th of October, just to show you over here that the red does last for ages. In fact, we'll do the 16th of October, and then we'll see that it overrides the green. So I'll go back to the task, log the task, 16th of October, and we'll say I did from 5 miles 50 to 6 miles, 6 miles 20, and it was not fit. We found lots of problems, and that meant it wasn't safe to use. So I'll save that. We'll have a look at the view again. And this time we'll see not only does the red override the green, but that the red lasts forever until it next encounters a green. Until that asset is inspected again and found to be fit, then it goes back to green. So you can see from 5 miles to 5 miles 50, it stayed green until it ran out of its 9 days. But from 5 miles 50 to 6 miles 20, as soon as we found that it was not safe, it obviously went red, and it was red until it was examined and found to be safe again. Now, none of that's affected the current status. The current status is all still green. Obviously, we've logged these maintenance tasks in a bit of a funny order. Hopefully, in real life, they'd be logged contemporaneously. But it hasn't affected the current situation of the asset. It's all still green, and here it is on the current status chart, all still green. But I'm now going to log one more recently that makes it red. So I'll log one for yesterday. And we'll say, I'll do one with funny mileages this time. We'll say from 5 miles 12 to 5 miles 21. Asset will be out of use. It's not fit for trains. So I'll record that. And it's now due now again, because not all of the asset is green. We'll have a look on our calendar chart. There's the bit that I just did, and you see because I put funny mileages in, it's aligned it appropriately for where those mileages are on the scale, but it means that it's red as of today. It's still red until it's next green. So if I go back to the summary, we'll now see on the current summary, there's that bit of red because that's what exists today. If this asset required several different maintenance tasks, there'd be a column in that current status for every asset maintenance task that it requires. Let's imagine it requires a gas safety for some reason, and then we'll see there's an extra column there for task 276 gas safety, and it's all white because it's never ever had anything recorded against it. So going back to our diagram, it is now, I can confidently say, it is appropriate to have linear assets station to station or station to other significant points at which you want to break your railway up. It's not really a good idea to have one massive asset maintenance task, even though it would work and you can now break it up by asset. I think it's a lot cleaner to break the railway up based on where you regularly do the patrols and where you're likely to want to mark assets out of use or in use. I would say up to about 5, 6, 7, 8 miles is probably the max really to go to before the records are likely to become a little bit overwhelming. But it will still work from a technical point of view perfectly well. I've also come to recommend that at locations where there's more than one line, where there's more than one track, that perhaps they should be separate assets to aid the recording, especially the recording of defects, which have always been able to be recorded at a specific mileage. So to break up my entire railway here into assets, I've got a blue asset from the buffers at Appleby to a nominated point at Bark Hill, a green asset from that same nominated point at Bark Hill to the buffer stops at Castleford. And incidentally, it's really important to robustly nominate what that point is between the assets to make sure that the person doing the green patrol and the person doing the blue patrol do actually meet in the middle and don't leave a gap. And then for the run-round loop at Appleby, a yellow asset. For the run-round loop at Castleford, an orange asset. And then a brown asset for the number 1 siding at Bark Hill and a red asset for the number 2 siding. How you choose to break it up is completely up to you. In a lot of cases, I think it's wise that switches and crossings don't count as part of the linear track asset because obviously they have very different maintenance tasks to be completed. So in some cases, breaking up the assets around the switches and crossings might also be appropriate. So I hope that's been useful. Please let me know if you have any feedback. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.